Buenas, buenas, buenas. I'm Vanessa, the host of Chicklet, a book review podcast to empower women. Each episode, I'll unlock the power stories by exploring popular chicklet themes and use them as a starting point for insightful conversations. Today's book is called Loud, Accept Nothing Less Than the Life You Deserve by Drew Afualo. She's a Samoan influencer who got famous by calling out stupid men on TikTok, and a lot of times that's the most oppression that these men have ever experienced. Today's book covers many misogynistic myths that continue to influence our world. Usually, I have a part 1 and a part 2 of these books that I review, but because of the holidays and I've been moving and my birthday, all these intense things, we only have one episode this month, and that's this episode with a very special guest, Adriana Dominguez, who's a public speaker on topics like navigating the corporate world, how to give feedback, building confidence, navigating imposter syndrome, and so much more. She also has a TED Talk, right?
A talk on taqueria. Yeah.
There we go. And Adri is also a Zumba instructor who uses dance as a way to feel empowered. So welcome, Adri. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Hey, this is so fun. Have you ever done a podcast before?
Only once, and it was more like a work assignment, and we were talking about it was a DEI assignment and talking about like what are the challenges that women go through like in the corporate world. Sadly can't share that because it was before an internal thing, but this is Molly really like my second one, I guess you could say. So I'm excited.
I love that. I'm looking forward to the ones that you have in the future. So tell me, what did you think about the book?
I feel like this might seem very corny, but I feel like the books made me feel like once I close it, like I have the physical copy, I have the audiobook, and I have the Kindle version because I kept coming back to a certain point. It was like I was being hugged, like I was being comforted, and that was just so powerful. I felt like I was getting a hug from someone who understood me and was seeing me. That's how it felt. Yeah. What about you?
I feel like this book was very much like what you would expect from an influencer. It's super fun, super cheeky. The entire thing, it's like she's speaking to you. It's almost like one long podcast episode, but in a book form, which I appreciated. Like, I really liked that. And I think that this book specifically would be really good for really young women. You know, I'm 33. I feel like a lot of the topics I'm super familiar with. I've experienced a lot of the things that she shared. So I feel like it might be good for a younger crowd who maybe is not so familiar with these things. But I really appreciated it for what it was, right? It's not like she's like a doctor, an expert, and it's supposed to be this like super knowledgeable with all these statistics. Like, it's not like that. It's a fun thing, like you said, to be in community, to feel safe, to feel heard and seen. So I loved it. That's not me knocking it at all. It's just like there's certain, different types of books. And that was this book. She's an influencer. So I think it's what you'd expect,
Yeah, I agree. If Drew ever watches this, Drew, if you ever watch this, if you ever listen to us, I felt like I want to be in her brain for a bit. Like, I want to ask her more questions. It really made me feel this is someone who, like you said, younger girls should be reading this book. Everyone should read this book. This book should be part of like school curriculum. Like it should really be part of someone's journey to learn more about like how to stand up for themselves.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I was thinking that like I would want to give this book to my nieces when they're like 16. Like not necessarily, I think they're too young for some of the topics, but like it's about womanhood and understanding women outside of yourself and your own experiences. And she talks about so many different things. Like a lot of her things that she talked about in the book resonate with specifically Chicklet podcasts. So I'm going to just run through them. If you want to talk about any of these topics afterwards, feel free. But she focuses a lot on like charting your own course, decentering men when it comes to how you value and see yourself, how community is powerful. Being in love with a man is so bad for my brand. I laughed out loud. Like, damn, you're so right. Like, we're not supposed to like these men, but I love my boyfriend.
I know it's like this constant battle. Like, and she talked a lot about like internal battles of like expectation, but then also how do I feel and how am I perceived and what do I believe in? So yeah, I laughed out loud too.
It's so funny. She talked about how women's work is not monetarily compensated or respected by our male counterparts and leads us to expect the impossible for modern women who are supposed to have a full-time job and be responsible for their kids' well-being and cook a full dinner every night and maintain their sense of beauty and like it just like never stops,
And be
right?
in a
Like
good
this
mood and be, okay with it all.
and like do everything at
Love
work, like
mom.
the Sunshine Committee and like just all the stuff that makes the world go around and makes everyone feel happy and safe. And then we like don't get compensated correctly for it. And like it's not a lot of our work is not acknowledged or like dismissed or it's like not important. It's just like she just really goes in on how terrible it is to be a woman. While also, I think she even
Uh,
said that at one point, right? Where it was like, it's so terrible. And that's why you have to speak up, right? Like, you can't
uh,
use that as a reason to quit and give up. It has to be the reason why to relieve other people's suffering along the way,
yes.
which I appreciated.
Yeah, same. It's one thing that we share as women is that we suffer and we talk about it. And, I like that she brought humor to it. But yeah, at the core of it, it's very frustrating that like every generation of women is gonna have some sort of suffering and every century, I guess we as women see a different kind of suffering and but getting slightly better, each century, but at the same time, it's like I wonder what's going to be up for women in like 2 or 3 centuries from now. Like hopefully it's a lot better.
I mean, that's a goal. I mean, hopefully, right? That's why we're all doing the
I
things that we're doing. I think even the women that listen to this podcast, like a lot of them are my friends and family. I know for a fact that they're raising children to give our society a better future, to have happier, um, more well-rounded people so that they're not out here causing harm to people. Like I know that what you do with Zumba and your speaking engagements, what I do with Chicklet, like I do think that we really are trying our best to like make a positive impact on the world. So I hope it's
agree.
better in the
Agree.
future.
And you're
Yeah.
doing great, by the way. I think what you do for the community is amazing. Like giving people a space, which is what we need.
Thank you so much. I will take the compliment. Thank you. So have you ever listened to my podcast? Not to put you on blast or anything, but have you ever listened to an episode?
Yes,
Okay.
so I like how like I would definitely listen to it like once I knew I was going to be on here and was kind of like preparing to know what to expect. But yeah, I like the take that you give that it's very deep, but at the same time it feels like just like a friendly conversation over coffee. So, yeah.
Right, exactly. So one of the things that we do is we have lo bueno, lo malo, y el chisme. So right now we'll get into lo bueno. And the first thing that I want to get into is what Drew says about the root of all imposter syndrome. It's that we're failing to succeed in the system that's literally designed to be hostile to young women, specifically young women of color, and that makes us feel like we're failing as people. Is there anything that you wanna share about imposter syndrome in general and that sentiment?
Yeah, it's first of all, something that I realized reading this book, and it kind of made me reiterate that to myself, is that we're all human and we're all going to feel imposter syndrome all the time. This is a good plug for myself in case you want to hear more about imposter syndrome. I gave a talk about how to battle imposter syndrome and just lead more authentically. And these are tactics you can use, in your life, at work. Obviously, you can find it on YouTube as part of Thick Idiot. And one of the things that I think about with imposter syndrome is that no matter what, we're always going to face it, and it in a way it affects us women a lot more, and it affects people of color a lot more, and specifically because when you are growing up, and I'll give like my example is I grew up in like a very suburban area in Tennessee. There weren't that many Latino families, and those of us who were Mexican, kids thought that we were all cousins because they didn't see as many of us. And and that was just kind of weird. It always made me feel like, do I actually belong here? Am I actually supposed to be here? And I faced racist teachers. I faced racist friend, racist classmate. And it does get into your head at some point that you're like, huh, maybe some of those things are true. And you realize that that environment that you grow in starts to feel like that's how everywhere is. And like you realize that's actually not your fault. Maybe it's not even the kid's fault. Like it's the people who created those values in the first place and convinced the kids that that was true for them to say that. And that's part of the system that Drew was referring to. That it's very screwed up. It's very screwed up that how we're in this environment. Like it's not something that is easily fixed, but we as individuals can try to teach people and try to say, hey, that's actually not okay, and educate others. So going back to imposter syndrome really depends on your environment. So I'm also so impressed by her family, like the way that her family raised her to believe in herself and be super confident in herself. Like my parents did a great job in saying, you can do anything, like mija tú puedes, whatever you want, you can do it. But at the same time, there's always a part of the system that's going to get you. And that's the part where I think it really depends on where you grow up, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. I like what you were saying about how we as individuals have to do our part to like combat those systems because I feel like sometimes when we talk about imposter syndrome, we can sometimes make it seem like, oh, it's all in your head. You really can do everything. The world is yours. And I feel like that's a really like big disservice and it dismisses the fact that there are real like policies and laws and norms in the workplace and in our country, right? And so I really like what you were saying that we do have to do our own part and there's also a lot to combat systemically as well.
Yeah. One of the things that I loved about what she said, I can't remember the quote exactly right now, but she said that it's okay to be mean. Like she has a chapter like it's okay to call people out. And I realized even myself, like I'm in my mid-30s and I have felt guilty when I'm like, oh, that's not how you pronounce my name actually. Like should I say something? Or even if I hear something racist, like that someone said, like a friend or like even a family member, you feel awkward. And then you realize, wait, you should actually say something. Like this is an opportunity to teach them. It's an educational moment. And until we're all comfortable doing that, it's just not going to go away.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that there's a difference between actually being mean and being hurtful and harming someone and advocating for yourself. So I
Yeah.
think that's what she's saying, right? She's
Yeah.
not she's not saying go be an asshole and be a bitch and
Right.
like go ruin people's day. Like that's not her goal. It's like when someone crosses you, if you are going to come across as mean when you are advocating for yourself, then bitch go be mean. Like
Exactly.
don't let that stop you. So I fuck with that a lot. Like I really like that she says like that's her angle because if you watch her videos, she is cursing people out. She is putting
Yeah.
you in your place. She's calling you names. She is being super aggressive and with a purpose, she always says,
Mhm.
or with intent. And, maybe that's not the route that I would take, but I love that for who she is. You know what I'm saying? Like we love Drew for
Same. So
that
I
role.
wish I was more like Drew a bit. Like really, like I need to channel a bit of that Drew energy.
I love that. And if that's what's going to get you to advocate for yourself and get the things that you want and correct people when they mispronounce your name, like do that. And wait, did I mispronounce your name? Is that why you brought that up?
Oh
No?
no, 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 no. It's a like it made me think because she gave the example of if someone says your name wrong or like if someone gives you the wrong order at Starbucks, for example. Like I remember like I was a very shy kid and I don't think I would like really got out of my shell until I want to say maybe until I started working in consulting and sales. So like way after school, but like at school, I hated talking to people, hated public speaking, hated giving a presentation, and also hated correcting people about anything. Like if I got a wrong order at like a restaurant, it was like, oh, fine, whatever, I won't say anything. And now I'm like, no, I really wanted whatever. I really wanted spaghetti. This is not what I ordered. This is not what I ordered. So those little moments, like she said, they're kind of I want to say they're kind of like pebbles that you add to this little jar of confidence that you can work on every day. And like you can then applaud yourself and say, oh, I stood up for myself today by asking for the right order. And like you don't realize, but that actually does make you feel a little more empowered throughout the day. No, I really like it.
I love that because she even says that like you have to start small.
Mhm.
So if you are gonna, do the Starbucks thing or, they forgot your side of ketchup or whatever, like those tiny little things that it just takes 1 second to ask the waiter, like those things will help you build your confidence. And she says that in the book and I love that. Good.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah. And like one last thing I'll say on this is
Yeah.
for anyone who's listening who is like, I've done the small things, I'm good. Like, what are the big things? Like, there's also other things you could do. I didn't go into detail into this in my talk, but there was like there's dance classes that you can take, depending on where you live, like you can go to those. But here in New York, there's a studio that's called a rain room. And so it's where you learn choreography and you go to record this dance, and you're in this room with like a chair. So you learn a chair dance, and there's water falling on you in the room, and you feel so empowered because you, first of all, you look amazing. You look gorgeous while the water is coming down on you, and then you look amazing because if you're doing it in heels, like kudos to you for anyone who does it heels and like in wet, you could flip. I flip, but you feel so empowered afterwards. And when I did some of these dances, I felt like I could take on the world. Like afterwards, I was like, oh, I wasn't sad. I just needed rain room. I just needed to feel empowered. Like I just needed to like dance my ass off. Like, and it just changes your confidence. People can see it. So I think one of the biggest things I took from this is definitely the practicing is something so important. Like confidence is a practice.
For sure. And I also took notes on like the advice that she gave. I have it here, like advice and lessons that she shares on how to start living according to your desires, not men's desires, in order to be happy, confident, and connect deeper with others. And she literally, number one on my list is explore what makes you happy. So it's like, sure, start small, do those little things, advocate for yourself in small ways. But another thing, if you're looking for something bigger, it's like, what actually makes you happy? Is it Zumba? Because I think I shared with you that I actually don't like Zumba.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I have a problem with authority. So I do not like any class at all. Like, do not tell me to lift it, go quicker. Don't tell me to do more. Don't tell me what to do. I don't like that. But when you host the Latina writing comunidad, I'm excited and I will be open and ready to take your direction.
Oh, I love that.
Maybe I need that like one-on-one connection in order to listen to your directions. But the point is that I know I don't like Zumba or like direct like classes because I have explored what I like and what I don't like, you know, and what brings me joy. And I'm not going to go into it because my listeners probably hate when I talk about it. I talk about it all the time. But I like lifting weights. And I know you like to lift weights too, right? You could talk about it more, but they're probably so tired. Like, bitch, I know you like lifting weights.
We get it. We've seen your posts. Like, you know, like, no, well, I am excited every time you share posts of like you doing like a pull up. Like, I can't do a pull up yet. Yeah,
I mean, either girl, you saw I
right, but
can't do
like,
it.
but you have like very good upper body strength. Like I can see the work that you've put in. So that's awesome. And I think lifting weights, every woman should lift weights. Like if you're listening and you've not lifted weights, please lift weights. Like it makes you feel more confident. It makes you feel stronger. And, you know, there's things that, this is again like the imposter syndrome part, that there are things that sometimes you convince yourself that are true. And it's not until you're tested that you're like, oh, wait, I can actually do a lot of stuff. I am a bad bitch. Like when I've gone to, there's a powerlifting gym here called JDI Barbell. And they have a community of women called Strong Girls, and they have a monthly meetup, and they do this fun challenge. And there was, I think it was the first or second time I went, that we all did a sled, like a sled pull and a push. I love sled. It makes you feel so good. And we had one of the, like each woman who was there was on the sled, and you had to pull them while they were on the sled. And there was, like, I had to pull someone, and I was like, there's no way I'm doing it. There's no fucking, like, I'm not this strong. That was the imposter. I'm not this strong. And I pulled her all the way across the gym. And I was like, oh my, I can't believe I did that. So lifting weights does so much for you. I have this spine problem because it's age and like sitting at a desk, you know, lifestyle. And when I went to the doctor, he said, you need to avoid lifting very heavy weights. And I started crying. I started crying. My mom was there. My sister was there. They're like, why are you crying? Like, this is for your health. And I want to be a strong girl. Like I was so upset because I was like, how am I going to look toned? How am I going to look strong? Because of what lifting weights has made me feel. Like it's like if I'm in a bad mood, I need to go lift weight. If I'm having a rough day, I need to go lift something. Like you can dumbbells now at like resistance bands, but lifting weights does so much for women. It's also just generally good for our bone density. I could go on. We can have another talk on like lifting.
Literally. No, and I think that like what you were saying, like lifting weights, like we think that lifting heavy weights is just for guys. And it's not. Like we are strong, we can lift heavy things. And so I totally agree. And I'm glad that you lift weights. And I like because you've posted too, and I like seeing when you post about it. Yeah. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about, body neutrality. Did that hit for you or no?
It hit me. It hit me. It hit me so hard. Like it hit me so hard. There were 2 chapters that had me sobbing. Like,
No.
yeah, there was that chapter just on body image had me sobbing. the chapter on the journey as a woman had me sobbing, but the journey as yeah, body neutrality was something that had me just like take a moment. I thought of my inner child, my past self, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry that I was so mean to you as a kid. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you still feel that way now? Are you still upset with yourself for being mean to yourself?
A little bit, yeah. I'm very upset that I let so many comments get to me and like convince me that that was the right way to go. So when I moved to Mexico City, I was like 16, and I'm realizing now I wasn't even that overweight, and like I had people in my circle tell me that I was overweight, and then I look back at the pictures and I'm like, I looked fine. Like I'm much heavier now. I looked fine. I looked completely fine, and I had it in my head that I looked like a completely different person, and I just feel so bad for her, the me of that time,
Yeah.
that was convinced about that. So that's what I was feeling, yeah. Like, I just feel bad for her, that I was not kinder to her.
I
Yeah.
see, I see. Yeah, because body neutrality, I think, really leans on not feeling anything about your body, just being grateful that it got you to
Yeah.
this day and that you're able to do the things that you are able to do, even if you're limited in some way, just being able to do whatever you can do, just being grateful for that and not being happy that you look this way or not feeling bad that you look this way. It's just about existing in your body. And just what really hit me with that like chapter was like, think of how much time we've wasted
So
on critiquing our body and hating our body. Like, can you imagine what we could have gotten done or how much
yes,
fun we could have had if we were not wasting our time thinking or looking at our bodies or critiquing our bodies? It's such a waste of time.
it is. The energy, the stress, like, and it's one of those things that sticks with you. There was an event that I went to last weekend or 2 weekends ago, hosted by one girl, Wharton University, and one of the panelists asked everyone, "Raise your hand if you've had a negative thought about your body or about yourself," and everyone raised their hands. Everyone goes through this, and it really sucks. Like, it sucks how much energy we put into it. Like, I thought I could have been doing so many more activities. There are activities I did not let myself do at some point in the past because I thought, I'm probably too fat for this. I'm probably not pretty enough for this. And honestly, it was not until I guess I moved to New York that I felt more confident. And I was like, you know what? Let's try the 5K. Let's try the dance class. Let's try the lingerie dance class. Like, and like those things, I'm like, oh wait, there are other women who are doing this too, and who are so confident. I'm like, okay, that's what I want to be. Like, I want to be, overly confident with who I am in my body. And I love what she said, that see your body as something to be grateful for and helping you through, day to day. And it's a vessel, like it's a vessel. And now, like, I guess my image on myself has changed so much because now I think, like, every day I say to myself, thank you, body, for everything you did. I imagine me as like two parts. Like, there's my mind and there's my body. And sometimes I'm like, oh, she's hungry. Okay. Like, she's a little angry because she's hungry. Okay. So that's the body part. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm cranky. Okay. She's like, my mind, she's a little overwhelmed. It's okay. So like, I think of, like, taking care of yourself and appreciating, your body for what it's gotten you through. I don't remember, I don't think it was this book, or it was a quote that I read somewhere, that the same body had been with you forever. And I think, oh my gosh, my little self is here. Like, this is my little self too. So it just made me really think I've gotten much kinder to myself, but oh, that hit. Like, it hit so hard.
I really like what you said, where you kind of view it as two different things so that you're not placing your value or the things that you deserve like on your body, right?
Uh,
Because, I might feel really good about how I feel today, but then, when you have children, your body changes. So what? Am I supposed to hate myself now because this happened and that changed? Like, no, that it's a really, like, when you're in a good place, you would think positivity is the answer. But then
yeah.
it's like, then what happens when you're in a bad place? That's why we have to get rid of body positivity and talking about how good it is and how skinny and how like flattering, because there is a flip side to it. So I love body neutrality, and I love that she talked about that in the book. Yeah.
I wish there had been more of that when I was growing up. Like,
Yeah.
I was in the fourth grade that, it was like pizza Fridays, and a lot of the girls would like get a napkin and like remove the grease from your pizza and be like, no, 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 we gotta do this because we don't want to get fat.
Yeah.
And like that kind of thing sticks with me where I'm like, oh my gosh, like all throughout school, like I just remember talking about what makes you fat, what doesn't make you fat, and like having my ab roller as a kid to like try to get abs and like be thinner. And it just messes with you so much. Like, yeah, I did not like my body at all when I was a kid. So I feel like as an adult, I finally appreciated more and be like, oh, okay, you're strong. You have strong legs. Like you can get through a race. You can go for a long walk in New York and things like that. So I see now myself as like, taking care of her, like of my body as like, because we got to be good for tomorrow. Because we have to be hydrated. We don't have migraine. We have to be good for work. Like, we need some sunshine. We're cranky, so we need some sunshine.
Yeah.
So taking care of yourself, because she's totally right. The only person you're gonna have to take care of really your entire life is you. But that's super important. So yeah, body neutrality was it was quite a chapter. Yeah.
I love that. Let's get into the little advice and the lessons that she shares. We already started with number one being like explore what makes you happy, and I hear that you have done that, with yourself, which love that. She also says to be honest with yourself, which I think is really like a really big one because I know for myself, maybe more so in the past where it's like, what your truth is, but you're like pushing it back and you're like, no, 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 like, no, like you're like in a denial a little bit of like what your truth is. Or maybe like a decision that you need to make that you're avoiding a little bit. And so I love that she gave that advice and is telling people, like encouraging them, like be honest with yourself. Because if you're not going to be honest with yourself, you're not going to be honest with your therapist, you're not going to be honest with your friends, with your partner, with your family, with your work, and like that's like not healthy, right? Like we need to be honest in order
Yeah.
to be happy and fulfilled.
Yeah. It's very true. I think all of us have things that we really don't like about ourselves. And it's easier to say that than the things we really love about ourselves. I think the things that this is a shout out to my therapist that like I think one of the things I've learned is, yeah, you have to be honest with yourself. And one of the questions that she drives me crazy with how right she is sometimes, and she's like there are some times where I'm like, oh, I'm just like frustrated and like this is how I'm feeling, and this is what people are telling me to do, and then she's like, okay, but what do you want to do? And I'm like, see, you can't, don't ask me that.
Yeah.
And like it's hard, like it's really hard to be honest with yourself and not lie to the person that you see in the mirror every day. Like that's so hard. And part of confidence is trusting yourself. Like I can say I don't always trust myself. Like I know it's like listen to your gut, and then it's like, yeah, what if my gut is wrong? What if I don't want to listen to what my gut is saying? Like I know this is right. This is the right thing to do, but I don't know. What if I, want to do this for the plot? Like I want to do this for the story. Like,
What if I'm wrong?
yeah, what if I'm wrong? Like I drive I drive my friends and like my therapist crazy when I say I wish I could have a time machine and talk to me 10 years from now and just say, did I do it? Well, like was I on the right path? Like, can you tell me if these decisions were right? And that's also part of owning that honesty to yourself. Like you're never gonna know if certain decisions are right or not. Like you can only really know what's good for you in the moment. And like a friend said, like she said something um like if you screw up, we'll be here. If you don't screw up, like we'll also be here. Like
Yeah.
we're like it doesn't matter. Like it really is up to you. But it's so hard. It's so hard to sometimes be honest with yourself. And I think I've just learned to I think part of growing, she said something like the scariest part of growing up is learning who you are. And as I've learned who I am, I'm like, sometimes I don't make decisions. And like that's okay though. But those are my decisions and those are my mistakes. And had I not made those mistakes, I probably wouldn't be the person I am today.
For
And
sure.
I wouldn't appreciate all the lessons here.
Yeah, I agree. And I how old are you?
I'm
If you don't mind
36.
me You're 36. Cool. So, you know how you wish you could go back in time and talk to 26-year-old? I like to frame that thought because I also feel that way sometimes, where it's like you can, when you're 46 and you wish you could talk to 36-year-old, like talk to her now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk to 36-year-old now so that when you're 46, you're like, yeah, I took care of me. You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
Exactly.
Like pull the strength from your future self who's older and wiser and reached all the goals and did everything that you wanted, in 10 years. Like give yourself today that like power and courage because think of your 26-year-old self, right? Don't you wish you could give her a little bit of
Oh
that?
my
So
gosh.
do that now.
Yeah.
Do
Yes.
do a little bit of that now. Like I try to frame it. I don't even know if I'm explaining it correctly, but I feel like you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but it's like talk to your past self now, today, and do the things that future self wants you to know and do. Which sounds
Yes.
kind of like crazy to say, but you have to like channel the power from somewhere.
No, it's completely right. And like she had the quote and I'm trying to look for it, but like she had the quote where like she doesn't want to regret like getting to
Yeah.
her 40s and regretting, life decisions or anything. And I wanna do that too. Like I remember when I was in my 20s, I was like, oh, 40 seems so old and like what am I gonna be doing? And I imagined at some point that I was gonna be like the CEO of some big company. And now I'm like, that's a lot of work. Like that's a lot. Like, it's like I admire the people that I work with, and I admire working at big companies, but at the same time, I'm like, "You know what? I actually really like having time for hobbies and taking care of myself and sleeping, and that's a lot of stress, and I don't know if I want that." And it's so right. I think that sometimes, like, journaling has also helped me. I didn't really embrace it until recently, has helped me think, "What is it that I really want?" And I can go back and see, like, myself from maybe, like, 10 days ago and be like, "Oh, interesting. I had this thought even just, like, 10 days ago," and, like, I feel like I'm growing maybe. So I used to write a lot in a diary when I was a kid. I don't have these diaries with me now, but I constantly think, I wonder what if I were to sit at a table with all of myself, like, each decade, I wonder what each person would say. So yeah, I agree. I think one of the biggest things you can give advice to yourself now, yeah, to help your future self.
For sure. And the next thing on the list kind of has to do with this, where it's like, notice how you speak to yourself and offer yourself the same grace and energy that you give to others. It's so easy for us to be so nice to our best friend and want our best friend to live this super fulfilled and happy life that they want, however it looks like for them. But then when it comes to us, we'll settle for things, we'll settle for jobs, we'll put up with shit from men that we, don't really want to put up with. But like, we have to give ourselves that same energy that we like give our friends or our loved ones or our family members. We have to do that to ourselves as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I don't know if it's like inherently woman thing or just like general people thing that we want to see the best for other people. We care about other people, but then when it comes to ourselves, we're like, oh, whatever. Like I don't care. Yeah, sure, it's making me sad, but whatever. And like that's why I think community is also so important. Like I love that she grew up with such strong people around her, consistently telling her, whatever happened, like it'll be fine, and like things will work out. And like I realized I grew up in like a very lucky, strong family that would also encourage me. And then when you meet someone who didn't grow up with that, you can immediately see it because they also, they don't have that same perspective. And you're like, huh, I wonder why that happened. Like it sucks that as a kid, if you're in the right environment, you definitely will change your mindset and you'll be kinder to yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And some of the other advice that she gives is, I'm going to directly quote her. You are worth the respect that you so freely give to others. So if someone refuses to give that to you as a fellow human, offer it to yourself in the form of advocacy. Like if they're not going to respect you and they're not going to give you what you deserve, at the very least is you can show up for yourself in the form of advocacy and make sure that you get it. Like I think that's so powerful because it takes the power away from the other person and puts it on to yourself, which sometimes we have to do, unfortunately.
It's scary. It can be scary. It takes work. Like even at work, like personal relationships, it's really scary to stand up for yourself.
Okay, let's get into inchisme. So she said these two things, which I've heard before in like other settings, but usually a lot more lightly. But she said these two things, which they're pretty much the same, but 1,000 deaths by paper cuts and die 1,000 deaths of disrespect. And I feel like that's a really perfect way to describe covert racism or sexism or oppression of any form.
Become
And just to refresh, our listeners' memories, overt racism or oppression in any way is super direct and like in your face, no denying it, but covert is very subtle. And so that's where die a thousand deaths of disrespect or by paper cuts. It's super small little transgressions that build up and grow over time. And that manifests itself so many different ways for women, which we can talk about. But in the book, Drew specifically talks about the invisible workload, men taking advantage of the kindness and vulnerability of women in all kinds of scenarios, not just interpersonal ones, male teachers who didn't take female students seriously, male employers who treated female employees differently, male family members who have different expectations for boy and girl family members. And she talks about how women do this too in order to boost their position in the workplace or whatever setting that they're in. And she, if you're interested to hear more about that part, like feel free to read the book. But for the listeners, I really like that she talks about and really highlights that this covert, racism and transgressions, they really do build up over time, and that's why we're so angry. Like
Yes.
we're always so shocked as to how angry we are, why we're so overwhelmed. It's because we have 1,000 paper cuts. Like no shit, we're going crazy. Like
Yes. Yeah, it baffles me how some people can, say, like, "Why are you angry?" I mean, example, I don't wanna get political, I'm not gonna get political, but, like, for example, with this elections, there's so much on social media of especially right after, of how people are thinking and how people should think, and I think it's just, like, there's a group of people who are like, "But why are you so upset?" And there's another group of people that's like, "Why are you not upset?" Like, we have to be empathetic. It's one of those things where, again, goes back to, I feel like, how you grew up. Like, I grew up in the South where I love that my teachers ingrained into me, like, how racism shows up, how discrimination shows up. I had teachers stick up for me for other teachers that I faced that were racist, and that's how I learned. It was weird because it was like, "Wait, why is this happening? Just because I look this way? Like, this makes no sense." So yeah, it happens, and it's scary when you sometimes don't see it. Sometimes even in yourself, you're like, "Wait, why am I thinking this? What are these thoughts I'm thinking? Is this an opportunity for me to learn something?" Which she also talked about in another chapter is like when your convictions are tested, that's also where you learn more about yourself. Yeah.
that's so true because you can tell that a lot of people's convictions, I think that was the point in that quote where she was like, you can tell a lot of people's convictions have never been tested because
Yeah.
the first time that it comes up, they get defensive, they don't hear you because they're so overwhelmed. It's like you've never once been tested or had to question or deep think about your own like unconscious biases. And so I think it's really important that we do that.
Yeah, that's right. Like, that reminds me, if you find yourself trying to stand up for yourself or telling someone, "Hey, that's actually not the right thing to do," and they get defensive, like, it's one of those things where you're like, "All right, you don't wanna learn." Like, you don't want to hear out how you're being hurtful towards a community or being hurtful towards a person versus someone who does not wanna be called out on it or doesn't wanna admit it is like, "No, that was not like, you're taking it wrong." So I really like that she says that it's okay to bring that out and to call people out on it. Like, that's how it's gonna be solved, and people who don't wanna be called out on it get defensive. It's like, they're the problem. They're kind of the pro
You're definitely the problem. 100% you're the problem. And it's up to us to have those conversations with people and like specifically with people that we care about, right? I'm not talking
Yeah,
about going on the internet and talking to
exactly.
trolls. I'm not saying like random strangers. That's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is like the few hundred people that you interact with in your life, like it is your responsibility to have those conversations. And so I think that we're all a little bit too quick to be blocking people and kicking them
Yeah,
out of our lives.
I
I'm not
agree.
saying that they don't deserve it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that like there is a little bit of a responsibility for us to have those conversations with people. And I know that I'm a white woman and I know I'm not part of the LGBT community and I know that I have a lot of privileges and so I know that it's easy for me to say that. And obviously it's up to each and every individual person to determine what conversations and what confrontations they're willing to take on. But you got to at least take on one. Like
Yeah,
there's got to be a few that you can. You can't just absolve yourself like, "Oh no, I can't have any conversation." It's like, "Well, I don't know if that's the
it's like
case." Like,
yeah, you have the power to, teach someone how to treat someone else who
yeah.
who might feel, discriminated against about something, and yeah, that's the issue. Like, I agree. I'm not like hot take. Anyone listening there, I also don't agree when you should just block people blindly. I think that just makes the problem even worse. I envisioned having like a dinner where like we can have people of different, different stances and just like listen, like no need to discuss, but just like listen on the other side because that's how you're going to get growth. Like that's how I feel you're actually going to get a revolution is understanding the other side and saying, huh, okay, I hear you. I may not agree, but at least I hear you and I understand where you're coming from because a lot of people have their values because of how they were raised. And that's super hard. Like sometimes it's hard to convince people if that's what they were taught. And it's going to take a lot of willingness on their part to actually listen.
Right. And I think for me, I just don't think that blocking should be number one on the list. I think
Yeah,
it should be like number 3 or 4.
exactly. Yeah,
Like, I do think it should be on the list. Some people deserve to be blocked. Some people are homophobic and racist and they want to be. It doesn't
yeah.
matter how many conversations you have, doesn't matter the statistics, doesn't matter anything. Fuck those people. Like, that's what I do think.
Yeah,
I just think that blocking should not be number one. It should be on the list. Do it. You decide when to do
agree.
it. But use it as a last resort maybe, or we're like, yeah, just not number one. Have some
Yeah,
conversations, like send a couple links. I don't know, invite them to a dinner and like, I don't know. There's so many different ways to go
yeah,
about
yeah.
it.
See if
Like,
you can change one person. Like,
yeah.
see where it goes. But yeah, I agree. I don't think blocking is exactly like I have like cut off people in my
Sure.
life at some point for being disrespectful, and I remember I tried I tried being friends or like I
Or
tried,
try.
including them in my life. But then when I saw they weren't putting in the same effort in, learning about me or, being with me or whatever, I was like, all right, you know what? I guess it's just not working and that should be
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like this is a really good like segue into lo malo of the podcast because I feel like her take, right, is that she thinks that men do need to feel shame and be embarrassed and called out, and like an aggressive curse out, like call out is the way to do it. And I feel like what we were just kind of describing is like it's necessary, but it kind of seemed like, you're familiar with her work, like in
Yeah.
her, so like, maybe someone who's not familiar with her work might not really understand.
Might be taken
But
back a bit.
yeah, they might be taken aback of it, and like, you get through that on your own because I do stand by her messages. It's just
Okay.
like, and I don't know, I don't think that negative reinforcement works. It's like it's proven not to work as effectively as positive reinforcement,
Yeah.
like from like a psychology standpoint. So it's like I agree and I understand, but that was the one thing that I put in like lo malo of the book.
Yeah.
At one point she was saying how men are afraid of how other men view them.
Mm.
And like that's like not really completely totally it. It's like also the patriarchy makes men subscribe to it, because if they don't subscribe to it, they're going to be viewed as like gay or something, and that's where the homophobia comes in, and that's where like machismo comes in. Like there's so much that comes into play. It's not just like, oh, I want my guy friends to like me. Like it's no, it's these systems also at play
Yeah.
here. And I think that Drew does touch on them and she talks about them. I just don't know that she's doing like a deep dive analysis into it. And so that's my only lo malo. I hope no one gets mad at me for that, like, because
Yeah.
it's not like, it's just she's an influencer, right? Like that's not the type of book that it is. But I do wish that it was a little bit more of a deeper dive into how men are also negatively affected by these same systems that
Mhm.
hurt women and women of color.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's something I thought about too. The part where she says, if you're a woman saying not all men, like she'll get upset. But I'm also like, I mean, I know some like really good men who like will say, listen, men need to do better, or who will also call out women if women are saying something that they should not be saying or thinking a certain way, that hurts others. So I agree. I think there are certain men also who have also been affected by the system, who also maybe did not grow up with certain privileges. Like we say, white men, have certain privilege. Like, yeah, and there's some men who unfortunately don't, or who did not have the right tools or were not supported. And, unfortunately, I think as women, we grow up kind of like to be taught like you're gonna figure it out. Like you have to figure it out. Like first of all, you're gonna figure it out. You're gonna figure out how to live life, how to get things on your own. Like that's how you have to be. With men, I think no one really tells them they're kind of told that they have to do things and they have to figure things out. But then they're also shamed if they don't figure things out at a certain time, and they're made to feel worse. So like you said, it's just a lot of negative reinforcement, which does not work. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not bringing this up to like stick up for men because I don't think that they need to be,
Right.
like championed for. Like, no, that's not
They
at all the
haven't,
point.
they have enough.
But it's just a little bit of like acknowledging, right? Like,
Right.
because if we ignore it, we're gonna lose the ones that are on the fence. And we can't lose any of them. We
Yes.
can't lose any men in
And
this
according.
fight, especially when you look at like the election statistics. Like, we have to stop losing guys in this fight. And I think the way that we do that is by acknowledging their experience and addressing it. I'm not saying to coddle them. I'm not saying to like baby them, like not at all. I just think that we have to come at it from a more understanding standpoint.
Yeah.
I'm so scared to post this episode because like
Sorry,
sounds like
Drew. Yeah, lovely.
no, and like
Was it?
sticking up for men, like ew, this is
I
not
know
my
it.
brand.
It makes me go, oh, but I mean, it's true. Like,
You get what
like,
I'm saying? Like you know, like
right.
yeah,
I get it. Like, this is why I say it also depends on where you, like your environment, because
yeah,
like I've worked in tech, and you see also different, I'm sure it happens in other industries, but like you definitely see the different cultures that appear in the industry. So when I was first in tech in here in the US, like there weren't that many Latinos in tech. There's a great community here that's called Latinas in Tech, which I'm part of, which is great, but there weren't that many, like not a lot of people that I worked with.
yeah.
But you also see other cultures where this pops up. Like I have really good coworkers and friends who have said, sometimes it's hard for me to speak up because in my culture, and like this particular friend, she's Asian. She goes, it's not so easy for me to speak up for myself. And then there was a guy who's Asian who said the same thing. And he was someone I was mentoring. And I was like, oh man, like I feel like I want to speak up for you. Like I feel like I want to, stand up for you. So that's why I'm also like, yeah, the system is made for men. Like the system has really helped men. But at the same time, you interact with these people and you're like, some of them need some help. They never got that, or did they not know how to work the system? I don't know. Like that's a whole other thing that, makes you also question. Like I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Yeah.
Amazing. I'm glad that you get what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
So here are I'm gonna go through like a few topics that is covered in the book, but that you and I are not gonna talk about. So if anyone listening wants to go read the book, you can go do that. Drew also talks about Trump's behavior, pick me girls, what your relationship should not be, like your romantic relationship, 4 different types of terrible men, not wanting children, and her experience with abortion, which I appreciated her sharing. Her and Kiki Palmer are 2 celebrities that I've come across lately who have shared their experience with abortion. And I think it's really important that all women talk, or all people talk about their experience with abortion, to normalize it and like destigmatize it, and also to make it more accessible, right? Because I think that sometimes when we talk about abortion, it sounds like this foreign thing that doesn't have to do with anyone that we know. It's like only this demographic of women in this other state. And that's just not the case. So I really like that Drew and also Kiki Palmer are talking about their experience with abortion. But did you want to talk about any of the topics that I just mentioned? I feel like we could talk about every single one, but
We can talk about every single. I know. I feel like I have a story for every single one. But
literally.
that I'll just say that if you haven't read this book and you're thinking about reading it, I think that the chapter about abortion and what does motherhood mean. Oh, it's called "There's No One Way to Be a Woman." That's the chapter, and that one got me very emotional because I thought all my life, like I admire mom so much. I admire my mom. Like she is the best mom. I don't care. She's the best mom. Everyone has the best mom, but she's the best mom. And I have always admired women who, have made so many sacrifices to be an amazing mother. I I never felt like I really, wanted to be a mother, and that scared me. And so that's why I feel like this is the first book that I read where I see it on paper and I'm like, wait, you feel the same way? Like someone else felt the same way where like my mom told me that when I was a kid, I had like one of those toy babies that would cry, and that I left it in the closet or something because I was like, it won't stop crying. Like it's ruining my day. I want to go do something. And so maybe that's something that made me realize like maybe motherhood is not for me. I don't know. Like
Yeah.
it's never been something that has made me feel excited. Like I'm always like, ugh, it's gonna be something extra, and like financially, like it's a lot of responsibility today. Like it's a lot, like people pay almost the same amount of rent in like daycare. Um, so that was a chapter that that was the second chapter that made me sob, that I thought, oh my gosh, I think this is maybe locking in that, maybe motherhood is not for me. I would love to. I would love to be an amazing aunt and like love kids, but for anyone who's listening, if you are on the fence of motherhood, definitely read that chapter, because, if it helps you figure something out, great.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Adri, what's your social media so people can follow you?
Yes, it's adri.domgzp on Instagram. So we can add the link there as well.
Yeah. I also put it on the screen so
Oh,
they can look at
perfect.
it too.
Okay. So there you can also follow me on LinkedIn. Happy to see you. I'm in New York, so I love going to events to meet other people who like to talk about this and just life in general. So feel free to reach out. If you ever feel lost or like want to vent, or you're in, like, you feel like you don't belong for some reason, like, I'm always here. I love talking to people about their experiences as well and learning from others. I would love to hear more about how people are staying confident. I think the one quote I'll leave that I really liked from the book is, Drew said, every confident woman in this world has taken hundreds of necessary steps to unlearn what society initially told her was correct. And it's a learning process, and we're not going to really get very far if we don't all do a little bit, just a little bit, to help with that. So yeah, I appreciate being on this and being able to talk about it. So hopefully someone out there can benefit from it.
100%. I know that all of my friends and my family members are going to love this episode. The next episode is going to be on creating your limitless life with Dr. Esther Zeladon, and she's also the special guest for that book. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and leave a review. New episodes are uploaded every other Monday. You can also follow me on social media at Chicklit Podcast. Remember that the only way through this difficult life is in community. Thank you for watching. Bye.